Hey guys, Miss Scout here. Today we're going to talk about rhythm and meaning in poems. Before we begin, let's go over some very important vocabulary that you need to know for this lesson. The first word is repetition. Repetition is repeating the same words. Alliteration. Take a second to say that fancy word. Alliteration. That is a big word, and that word means that you are using words that begin with the same letter or the same sound at the beginning of the word. And we will look at some examples of words that have alliteration later. The next word is a regular beat. A regular beat is a steady pulse. Think about the ticking of a clock. That steady pulse creates a rhythm. We will actually clap out regular beats later today in this lesson. Our next word is rhythm. Rhythm is a regular beat that makes you want to clap your hands or sing along. Some of your very favorite songs have a very good rhythm. That's what makes it catchy. And our last word is rhyme. Rhyme means words that have the same ending sound. For example, tin and fin rhyme because they both end in the same sound in. Let's look over here at our example of this nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Now, some of our favorite nursery rhymes and poems have a lot of these vocabulary words. Our first word, repetition. Well, we do see that in our example of Humpty Dumpty. Words that are repeated are Humpty Dumpty, because the first and the second line, it tells you, it starts with Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. So that would be repeated words in the poem. Now, alliteration, we do not have any examples of this in this nursery rhyme, but we will look at some more later. Regular beat, again, we're going to look at a poem later and we will make our check marks to show the steady pulse or the regular beat in a lot longer of a poem so we can practice. But this poem does have rhythm and rhyme. If you look at the end of each one of these lines here, wall and fall rhyme because they end in the same all sound. The other two words that rhyme are men and again because they both end in the N sound. Let's continue and look at some more examples. These two nursery rhymes are some that you've probably already heard of before, and they have some wonderful examples of some of our new vocabulary that we need to discuss. Let's just take Jack and Jill for a moment and look at this one. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. So if you look at this poem has a very good example of alliteration. Remember that big fancy word, alliteration? That means that a word starts with the same sound at the beginning of the word. So Jack and Jill both start in the J sound. Therefore, that is alliteration. We have a lot more than just that in this poem. We have some examples of rhyme. Hill, Jill rhyme. Do you see anything else that rhymes? Probably not too much more than that. But this one has a very good rhythm. Can you think of any other examples of your favorite songs that have alliteration, or maybe repetition, or rhyme? Some of our very favorite songs that you probably can name and sing at this very moment have repetition and rhyme. That's what makes it catchy and fun. It's also what gives it a regular beat and a rhythm. Let's look at this poem, An Alligator Ate My Homework. And we're going to talk a little bit about the rhyming words and the repetition in this poem. An alligator ate my homework. He tore it all apart. I tried so hard to stop him, it really broke my heart. An alligator ate my homework. There was nothing I could do. He took it from my backpack and then began to chew. An alligator ate my homework, so I cannot turn it in. You say you found my homework? Right in your garbage bin? This is a kind of silly poem. Let's look at the rhyming words. So number one, we want to look at the rhyming words. And remember, these are words that end in the same sound. A lot of times in the poems we will be looking at, your rhyming words will be at the end of the line. In this case, we have 3 stanzas. This is 1, 2, 3. If you haven't guessed already, a stanza is sort of like a paragraph, but it's called a stanza when you're talking about poems. So if you look at the end of each line, a line is like a sentence in the poem. You have in the first stanza the words apart and heart rhyme. Homework and him start with the same sound. They both start with the h sound, but they do not rhyme. Looking at the second stanza, do and chew rhyme. In the third stanza, we have in and been. If you notice here, the second and fourth line, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. The second and fourth line in this stanza rhyme. The second and fourth line in this stanza rhyme. And the second and fourth line in this stanza rhyme. That's important because the rhyming words are in the same place. That helps it to have a rhythm. Let's look at the next one. What is the repetition and why does the author repeat these words? Repetition is repeating the same words or the entire sentence or a line in a poem. The words that are repeated in our poem is an alligator ate my homework. Do you see this line repeated again in the poem? Yes, I do too. In stanza 1, it's the first line. Stanza 2, it's the first line. And in stanza 3, it's the first line. Why did the author repeat these words? Well, it is part of our title, so that is important, but the author repeats these words to give it a rhythm. To give it a repetition creates a rhythm. And the author, or the speaker, is trying to make a point that he doesn't know what happened to the homework because the alligator ate it. Number 3, who is the speaker in this poem? Well, who do you think is speaking in this poem? I agree. I think it is probably going to be a student because here it says he took it from my backpack. And usually students have backpacks, right? And students have homework. And it says here you say you found my homework. So if it's my homework, that means it has to be a student. And the last one, where would this poem take place? Yeah, I think I agree. I would say that it takes place in a classroom. He could be talking to his teacher and saying he doesn't know what happened to it because an alligator ate his homework. Don't you ever try to use that excuse, though. I'm sure your teacher would know the difference.
Hey guys, Miss Guild here. I'm going to read to you a poem and we're going to clap out the strong beats of this poem. The poem is titled, I Have a Little Frog. Okay, here we go. I have a little frog. His name is Tiny Tim. I put him in the bathtub to see if he could swim. He drank up all the water and gobbled up the soap. And when he tried to talk, he had a bubble in his throat. Okay, now I want you to try to clap out the strong beats of the poem. Okay.
All right, let's try another poem. You've already heard Miss Gould read this one aloud, I Have a Little Frog. I've even clapped out the strong beats in this poem. So now let's look closely at the rhyming words and some alliteration. So what are the rhyming words in this poem? Good. I agree. Where it says Tim and swim, those words both end in the M sound. So those words are rhyming words. The next set of rhyming words are soap and throat. These are called slant rhymes because they don't rhyme completely, but they still sound alike. So that's a slant rhyme. Number 2, what are some examples of alliteration? Remember, alliteration is repeating the same sound at the beginning of a word. So it doesn't have to rhyme, it just has to start with the same sound. So here where it says his name is Tiny Tim, Tiny and Tim both start with the T sound. So that's alliteration. Down here, if you see where it says when he tried to talk, both start with the T sound. That's another example of alliteration. Remember, with alliteration, the words have to be near each other in the line. We couldn't have a word up here have the same beginning sound as a word down here. They have to be either next to each other in the poem or in the same line near each other. You could even say that two tried to talk. All 3 of those words start with the T sound. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to read this poem again out loud. I want you to try to clap out the strong beats like Miss Gould did in my video. And I want you to mark these beats with a check mark. The check mark will indicate where you clapped. So every time when you're reading it aloud, every time you clap, I want you to put a check mark. Take a second to pause this video and do that now. Good job, guys. I hope you had a good time clapping out the strong beats of this poem. What I've done here is I took what I did whenever I read it out loud. Where I clapped out each strong beat, I put a check mark there. That shows you that these are the strong beats within the poem. Okay? This creates a steady pulse or a rhythm. The other things that create the rhythm are the alliteration, the repetition, as well as the rhyming words. All these things together help poems to be catchy and fun for us to read. So we have to remember these very important vocabulary words whenever we're learning about rhythm and meaning in poems. The last thing I want you to do is I'm going to read this one to you, and I want you to take a second with your teacher and see if you can find some rhythm, alliteration, repetition, rhyming words. See if you can clap out the steady beats in this poem, just for fun. The poem is titled I Like. I like sunshine, I like snow. I like brown leaves when they blow. I like cookies, I like cake. I like waffles when I wake. I like collies, I like cats. I like clowns in funny hats. I like baseball, I like trains. I like sleeping when it rains. I like stories at bedtime. I like poems when they rhyme. All right, guys. Remember, practice all these vocabulary words, all this alliteration, repetition, rhythm, rhyme. All of these make poems a lot of fun to learn about. Have a good day.